what's up, guys? Josh Ansley here. Welcome back to another episode of I Am I. I am Joshua Ansley. And I'm just chilling out here on a beautiful day in New Jersey, right? Now, about 7 weeks from now, I'm going to be out on a beautiful beach in St. John, basking in the sun in the U.S. Virgin Islands on a gorgeous yoga adventure retreat with hiking, sailing, healing techniques, and all kinds of awesome surfing and stuff like that. It's going to be tons of adventure. So if you want to come join me on that, please do so. Reach out and we can make that happen. But really, there's nothing wrong with being here in this moment, in this beautiful weather right now, because it's all about how we relate to it, right? As I've said before, my teacher says, I am not cold, my body is cold. Or the body is cold, not my body, because nothing is ours. We think it is, and that's how we get stuck in the I, me, and mine. So I want to talk a little bit about surrender. Surrendering the I, me, and mine. It's all about surrendering the ego. And it sounds really, we don't know what the fuck does that mean. I have no idea, but I can tell you a little bit of insight from what I've understood, right? Is that the I, me, and my comes from the separation. It comes from this concept thinking that we are separate from God or our higher self or the divine, or that we are separate from one another, okay? And it sounds real mystical, and it is, but it's actually scientific. Like I always say, it's logical proceeding. It's all about how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to the world. Because how we relate to ourselves is how we're going to relate to the world, and that's how the world will relate to us. If we think I'm worthless, I'm a piece of shit, I'm not good enough, then we're going to relate to the world in that way. We're going to go out there and think, I'm worthless, I'm no good, I'm a piece of shit, I'm not good enough. And then the world will see us that way. The world will be like, you're worthless, you're no good, and you're a piece of shit, and you're not good enough. Right? And that's how it's going to react to you. So we have to condition ourselves to understand this sense of self, and we have to surrender. So let's talk about surrender. What does that mean? Again, I have no idea. To let go, to let go. Jesus, take the wheel, right? Or Krishna, take the reins. Because if we haven't figured out by now, it really doesn't fucking matter which deity or which master. They're all trying to get us to the same place. Whichever path we're going to follow, whichever leader we're going to follow, if you choose to follow a leader. A guru is a dispeller of light. Dispeller of darkness. And that can be anybody, anything. You can be your own guru, right? So it's really about surrendering. Surrendering and giving up this control of how we think it needs to be, how we think it's supposed to be, and surrender into what actually is, and the potential and the possibilities of what could be. So when I say Jesus, take the wheel, right, and Krishna, take the reins, because it's a really an awesome metaphor in the Bhagavad Gita. And Arjun has Krishna as his charioteer. Like, what an awesome charioteer, right? And it's a really awesome metaphor. The metaphor is that the chariot is the body, right? It's this vessel. So the horses are the organs of perception, right? So they're out there, they're contacting the world, and then the reins represent the mind. And the mind is what's controlling those organs of perceptions are coming back into the mind. And the mind is telling the organs of action, because it's the organs of perception and the organs of action, right? It's the organs of perception as it comes in and the organs of action as it goes out. And so the mind is now telling the organs of action where to go, right? So if you're holding on to those reins, Arjun, in the battlefield of life, he's got shit he's got to do, right? Technically, right? So he's got to be, if he's holding on to the reins, he can't do that. So it's giving over the reins to something higher. It's not just giving up, it's surrendering to win. And it's letting your mind and your intellect be guided by something higher. That is represented by Krishna, or whether you're to say, Jesus, take the wheel, and you're giving over to Jesus, or whether you're giving over to the universe, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it is something that is outside your mind. If you are limited by your mind, you're screwed. Look, it's a beautiful thing, the mind. Everything that has ever been created, this bench, anything, these clothes that we're wearing, all started as a thought, right? But we have to understand that there is something outside of the mind. And there's a mind that creates our emotions, and outside of our mind and outside of those thoughts is something absolutely incredible. And you can call it God, you can call it the ultimate reality. It's very simple, and it is mathematic, it is scientific, it's not just mystical. It's that when we get outside of our thoughts, right, which is virtually impossible because we relate to ourselves as this body, as this mind, as this intellect. But if we can step out and surrender that mind, let that mind be guided by something else, which we know nothing about, because everything we know is inside our mind. It's everything that we've learned. And what we can learn, this basic fundamental principle, the thought is thinking our way out of the mind, right? It's surrendering the mind. So the information, the knowledge that we get is that there is something outside of the mind. And that knowledge will allow us to get ourselves outside of the mind and surrender that mind, surrender the reins to something higher in this life, and give over and just let go for a moment. And the whole body will let go from holding on, controlling and needing it to be this way. It's surrendering into the beauty of the snowstorm. I am not my body. I am not my mind. I am not this intellect. And for those of us that argue and say, no, I do need control, it's not about some God or something like that. That's why, George Bernard Shaw said that the best acting falls somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic, between the U.S. and England, right? And that's why I think the best spirituality falls somewhere in the middle of the Pacific, I guess, right? Between the East and the West. Because in the West, we surrender to something outside of ourselves, to Jesus or to some God that's outside of us, right? And in the East, the concept is that it is the self. So, but understanding that if your concept of self is your mind and your body, which is 90 million% what it is, then the ability to surrender to something outside of ourselves, that lower self, the little s, which is the mind, body, intellect, and surrender into the higher self, which is the capital S, which actually is the true nature of ourselves, which is Arjun, so that we can sit there and we can actually draw the bow and arrow while something else guides the chariot. I know it doesn't make any sense because you're trying to think about it, and that's all in the mind. It's outside of your mind. Get the fuck out of here. You got to be out your motherfucking mind, son. Peace. What? Too much?